Abington, Pennsylvania's Adam Shapiro has been featured in many roles in both TV and the movies. He's brought Philly with him as Hollywood's official soft pretzel purveyor. He loves the 76ers and all the Philly sports teams, though when supporting one of our teams, he does so, shall we say, undercover.
I will say, when I go to Phillies Dodgers games, I wear a Dodgers hat. I'm just going to put it out there.
Wait, say that again? You go to a Phillies Dodgers game and you wear a Dodgers hat?
Yeah,
Wait, I'm gonna hit the stop button here and stop our. What's up with that?
Adam Shapiro will defend his need to wear Dodger blue, while also talking Sixers, pretzels, acting, and more on Fresh 24.
The Sixers lock all windows and doors. Garbage in the goal.
Adam Shapiro. Abington's Adam Shapiro.
Yo!
Dude, dozens of TV shows, films, movies. You are married to a beautiful actress, Katie Lowe's.
I
You
don't
got
know
it
how
going
any of
on,
this has
but
happened.
all we're talking about with you now is soft pretzels. What's up with that?
That's all I talk about. I spend my days obsessed with Philly soft pretzels. I'm telling you, this is
Yeah, but you're making them.
Yeah, no pun intended, a twist I could have never imagined. Never imagined.
Okay.
When the pandemic started, I was doing a show. I was doing Never Have I Ever. My wife was doing a show called Inventing Anna. She was shooting in Brooklyn, and we kind of had the whole family there. And we moved back to L.A. during the lockdown because we're like, let's just get to our house, and who knows how long this is going to last. And I had right now he's 5, but Albie was 2 years old, and I was like, man, I got to make a Philly soft
This is
pretzel
your
for
son
this
we're
kid.
talking about,
This is
Albie.
my son.
Right.
And I'm like, Albie, this is it. This is the summer. He should be down the shore eating these pretzels, and now we're just stuck in our house, and no. And so, but have you ever seen somebody make a Philly soft pretzel in their kitchen?
Yes. Actually, yes. I've seen it. Because I'm obsessed with it too, so I love to look back in the kitchen. Oh, and the guy's twisting them around and all that stuff. Is there anything better than a Philly soft pretzel fresh out of the oven, en route to an Eagles game?
No, it's the best thing ever. It is
ever.
And I think a lot of people, myself included, during the pandemic, really needed that comfort food, and not just whatever comfort food you were near. I'm talking the comfort food from your childhood. I was I need a Philly pretzel right now. I'm going to kill somebody. So I had to, take it in my own hands and make one. And then after about a month of trial and error and trying to make up my own recipe, I pull out a batch from the oven, and my wife Katie's like, you've got to be kidding me. This is the best pretzel I've ever had in my life. So I start bagging them up and just flinging them over fences of other Philly people in LA. Yo, I threw something onto your porch, a little something to make you happy during the pandemic. And then it just started snowballing. People were like, yo, can I pick up some more? Can I pick up some for my sister? Can I drop some off to my cousin? And then my wife, whenever Kelly Ripa goes on vacation, she's like Kelly Ripa's substitute teacher when she does the morning show with Seacrest. And Seacrest they were doing an episode live from our kitchen. A national broadcast live from our house. And Seacrest was like, what have you guys been snacking on during your quarantine? And Katie's like, oh, my husband's obsessed with trying to make a Philly soft pretzel. And I just jumped on TV. I'm like, yo, Seacrest, I'm bringing you some tomorrow. And I go to his house at 4 a.m. and, because the show is shot so early here. And I drop him off pretzels, and he eats them live on the air. And he's like, everybody needs to buy Shappy's pretzels. And I was like, there is no Shappy's pretzels. But of course, because Seacrest said it on air, I went and got ShappyPretzel.com. I got the Shappy Pretzel Instagram. And I posted, listen, your Mall's pretzel can go F itself. Shappy Pretzel. And just threw down the hammer. And I was like, if we ever become a pretzel company, you will be the first to know if you follow this Instagram. And
so
like,
wait a second. So you have, and I'm seeing you on the Oscars red carpet with your wife, not talking about like your best supporting actor nomination or what she's wearing. You're talking about pretzels. I have a roll in here. I'm gonna play it. Let's listen.
This is live on the champagne carpet with Alicia Vitarelli, and some nominees and high-profile guests are starting to arrive, Alicia.
They are. The stars are starting to make their way down this champagne carpet. But you know what we always say, and you are going to love this, Philly. All roads lead to Philadelphia. In this case, they lead to Abington. They do. And Philly is bringing the fanciest party favor. Forget the swag bags. What's everyone getting tonight, Adam?
First of all, go Birds, go Owls. Okay. So we started LA's own Shappy Pretzel Company. It's a Philly pretzel company in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Jimmy Kimmel is one of our favorite customers, and he called a couple weeks ago. He's like, I want to put a Philly pretzel under every seat at the Oscars.
This is amazing.
That will be everybody's snack tonight. There's about 4,000 pretzels in the Dolby Theater right now.
Good for you.
Adam's been at the bakery since midnight. Try it.
I washed my hands, too.
Are you doing carbs?
I'm washed.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we're doing carbs, right?
Of course, we've done it. You got an address. You
we
look
might
beautiful.
be the only three at the Oscars
No, I'm
doing
convinced
carbs
this
right
will be the greatest snack that every one of the Oscars has ever
now.
had.
Yo,
because
Philadelphia, I miss you guys.
we love you.
We love you.
So good.
Go Birds. We're going to get them next year.
Abington's own
Abington High School.
Adam Shapiro.
And Adam's dad is a professor from Temple University.
Oh, good.
His mother
Yeah.
was the head of the foreign language
Abington
department at
Junior.
Abington Junior High School.
Oh, my. Yeah.
we
this
love
is-
Philly. We love Abington.
We love Philly. We've been in LA for 25 years, and I really missed Philly. And I was like, during the pandemic, I got to learn how to make a Philly pretzel. And it just turned into this insane company.
And here we are at the Oscars.
Of course, we love you, Katie Lowe's, married couple.
Well, yeah, we are both actors. So, I mean, even 10 years ago, had you said you're going to be going to the Oscars, I'd be like, oh my gosh,
Really?
the Oscars. Did I ever think I would be going to the Oscars as the pretzel queen? No.
Yeah, you
And
did.
I'm thrilled about it.
And we are
show
psyched
them
about
your
it.
couplings.
Oh.
Yeah. Can we zoom in on the cufflink?
Do you see that? Those are literally handmade, one of a kind,
Those are handmade
Shappy
right there.
pretzel couplings.
Yeah.
Don't worry. And also, we're on Gold Belly starting tomorrow, so you'll be able to ship
Katie
nationwide.
loves, ladies and gentlemen.
I listen to me. Walter's going to need a pair of those Philly pretzel couplings.
Anytime.
We're doing carbs
We're
at the
doing
Oscars.
carbs,
Yeah, we're
people.
Philly.
We're
You
just
know,
so
if
good.
you're going to go to the after parties later and have a bunch of cocktails, you need to put down a layer right now.
Yep.
Carb up
That's it.
under everyone's seat.
How
It is
Is it delicious?
so delicious. It's
Oh,
the
good.
fanciest pretzel.
Oh, good. I'm so
On the
glad
champagne
it is.
carpet.
Well,
Action
you know what we were
News,
going to do when we
ABC
forgot?
6. I'm dying right now. This is the John. Like, this was
This
my...
is the John.
This is what I want. Jim Gardner
You're
all
having it
day.
out.
This whole thing's spinning out of control. at this
Alicia's not
point
even
now.
looking. She's just letting them talk.
Isn't this
You know,
is my favorite moment at the Oscars ever?
well, there you go. Leave it to the Philly folks to turn it back here toward Philadelphia from Hollywood.
And I love
So Jimmy Kimmel asks you to put pretzels under the seats?
I'm telling you, once people started coming to my driveway to pick up these pretzels 2 years ago, one of his producers, Jill Lederman, amazing person, says, Jimmy Kimmel is going to freak out about these pretzels. Give me a bag. I wrote a note to Jimmy Kimmel on the bag. This was 2 years ago. We send the pretzels over to his quarantine in his house where he was doing his show live. And ever since then, he's basically ordered a batch of pretzels for Pretzel Day at Jimmy Kimmel Live for 2 years. And he calls me and he's like, I want to put a Shappy pretzel under every seat at the Oscars. And, over the past 2 years, we've gone into we've left my kitchen, we moved to a bakery, another bakery. Now we're in a really big bakery on Fairfax and right by the Grove in Hollywood, in West Hollywood. And we can do it. I was like, how many pretzels is that going to be? He's like, 4,000. I'm like, all right. I will make you 4,000 pretzels and put them under every single seat at the Oscars. Just help me get my wife and I on the red carpet, And we went. We got tickets, and I was up at midnight on Sunday morning. I baked until 7 with my crew. We shuttled the 4,000 pretzels over to the Oscars, got them under every seat, and then I ran home really quickly, threw on a tux. Made a custom soft pretzel cufflink, and Katie and I were on the red carpet like an hour later. We had the time of our lives. It was an unbelievable night. I never would have thought I would have beat the Oscars because of Philly soft pretzels. I wouldn't think anybody would beat the Oscars because of Phillies opera.
Yeah, right. All right, enough with the pretzels. We spent 6 minutes on it. You've doubled your sales. I want a piece of that action, all right?
You got it, Zoo.
I want to talk about your craft, okay? You've done a ton of movies, TV, Broadway work. You're Mr. Shapiro in the Netflix program, which is a terrific program, Never Have I Ever. Joel on Showtime's The Affair. Other appearances, The Bear, Central Park, Room 104, Grace and Frankie, Steve Jobs, blah, 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 blah. I say that with all due respect. Now, I had one role, okay? I was the TV play-by-play announcer for the 76ers. How do you get yourself around?
It was a great role.
Appreciate you, brother. But how do you get your head around all these different roles?
You know, it's funny. I mean, every actor has their own process. I think I approach every role with kind of like, all right, what would Adam Shapiro do here? Oh, I'm an astronaut? How would Adam Shapiro be an astronaut, right? So, like, I'm always coming from a very personal place. I am not Daniel Day-Lewis. I am not, like, gonna study under a cobbler for 3 years and then, like, and that being said, he's the greatest actor of our generation. I just want to be, like, a dad and also be an actor. So, like, I like to have a little bit of that balance. But like a lot of times I'm grateful because I feel like I've been cast really well. I really put myself out there, social media, just in general, just in public. A lot of times I feel like when people are casting me, they kind of know what they're doing. Like they know I'm getting cast for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's to bring what I do, and no better example of that than Mr. Shapiro. I mean, Mindy Kaling basically wrote this role for me and called it Mr. Shapiro until I took the role, and then it just never changed. So that's weird now that I have people on the street yelling Mr. Shapiro, and I think my dad is like behind me. But my mom was a teacher at Abington High School. My dad was a teacher at Temple University, both for 50 years. My first few jobs when I moved to LA were teaching jobs. So, being a teacher, which I've now been cast, I think 6 or 7 times as a teacher, it's just so in me that it doesn't take a lot of thought at all. Like I just go in and I'm like, I know when I stand in front of a blackboard and I sit down Indians, and I sit down like
it makes
with
sense.
my legs on the desk, like that's my thing. I think the times I've been asked to kind of step out of my comfort zone a little bit, I like to just marinate on it for a while. My process is like the moment I read the script immediately, I get to know the character, and then I just think about it for like weeks. And it starts to come in. And then whenever I feel like, this is another little trick of the trade, whenever I feel like I have no idea how I would deliver this line or how the character would deliver the line, I just pick a famous actor and then I imitate them doing the line and then I just steal it from them. You know what I mean? So like if I'm like, well, Tom Cruise would kill this line, and let's say the line is like, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? I would be like, all right, well, how would Tom Cruise do this? It would probably be like, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? And then I'm like, oh, there it is. I got it out. And then a lot of times the moment you get it out, you're like, okay, I've done it, and now I feel what that feels like, and now I can repeat that a million times.
Yeah, but then you sort of internalize it and add a lot of Adam Shapiro to it as well, right?
I do.
Right.
That's kind of my thing. And then by the time it comes out, it's normally just a version of myself, which is the type of acting I like to do.
People don't realize the tedium of being an actor. They look at the finished product, the edits, the music, the sound effects. It's all smoothed out. It's presented on a plate, and people must think, wow, just kind of doing that must be a really cool thing. But it can be so tedious. You do a line or two, and somebody makes a mistake, or somebody, a light goes out, or the director doesn't like something, and then you have to shoot it from 3 or 4 different angles. How do you keep in character with all that do-over stuff going on?
Yeah, it's really interesting coming from theater because I was a real theater kid and I graduated University of Maryland with a theater degree. So like I'm very used to just kind of doing it once. You just do it, and then if something goes wrong, you keep rolling with it. Like how you would have done at the Sixers games forever. And so it's a pretty like shocking change when you move to Hollywood and all of a sudden you're on a set and they're calling cut and they're having you do it again and again and again. I mean, I did a film last year called Mank with David Fincher, who's one of the greatest directors ever. But David is famous for doing multiple takes, like a lot of takes. Normally, from one angle, you might do something 5 or 6 times. Then you'll switch the angle. You might do it 5 or 6 times from that angle. Maybe a couple from a super wide angle to kind of lead the audience into the scene. So, yeah, maybe like you do like 12, 13 takes of a scene. Fincher, we did 200 takes of a scene on Mank. 200 takes. And that was the first time I'd ever really gotten mentally and physically sort of exhausted doing that many takes and sort of forgetting what I was saying, and all of a sudden the words weren't making sense. But it's not always like that. I don't know. For me, I kind of like it's like a dream as a theater actor to be able to stop and start over and do something again.
Yeah, right.
You know, like you train yourself to not do that and to just keep going. But I love getting 5, 6, 7 run-ups at something. A lot of times, especially in TV, I'm getting these lines maybe the night before, and in a lot of cases the day of, and I do a lot of comedy, so a lot of times writers are just shouting out lines to me that are alternatives or funny bits or whatever, and I'm having to like do these things for the first time on camera. So as an actor, I love getting a bunch of takes. And I see the savvier actors kind of are really good with, like, the ones who've been doing it forever. They're like really good about using the takes to show different colors. I kind of like, because I come from theater, I'm like, I'm going to do it the same way every time.
Yeah, right.
And I never want to mess up a take. But the more I do this, the more I realize, like, as an actor, you can use some of those takes to try different things and, like, kind of put it in the editor's hands to create, the puzzle piece that is ultimately your final performance in the movie. But it is, it's a lot of hurrying up and waiting. It's a lot of conserving your energy. You have to be very aware of the fact that you're going to be there for 12 hours, and there's a certain amount of energy you can be expelling in order to get through the whole day. So yeah, it can be really tedious, but I love it so much that my adrenaline's usually running so much when I'm on a set that I just go all, for weeks and weeks, and then I just crash when the whole project's over.
Yeah, right.
Like when I was doing Waitress on Broadway, I couldn't sleep for 6 months. I was like on another planet. And then I crashed for about 3 months after that project,
Something I know you identify with, and I don't want to chop it up too much about that, because I really want to know about your journey, a kid growing up in Abington, and how you got to where you are now. But one thing I know, and you could just nod your head, as a live performer, you talked about some of your theater roots, the buzz, because you have to get it right. The level of concentration is such that when I get off the air or you get off the stage, I'm sure you're like, you're right. You can't sleep for like a week. But thank you for the head nod. I just want to know, you're a kid growing up in Abington. I was a kid growing up in Northeast Philly. I always wanted to do what I ended up doing. But I was like, I was a nobody. I was a chubby kid. I wasn't real popular. I was kind of awkward, that sort of thing. Who were you, Adam Shapiro, growing up in Abington?
I'm not just saying this. I worshipped sports broadcasters.
No way.
You were my guy.
Oh my God.
My brother was a basketball player, right? And so, you grow up and you're like, you just do what your older brother does. So I thought I needed to audition for the basketball team every year. And I never made it, probably because I say things like audition for the basketball team, right? I was never cast. The only time I was ever cast on a sports team in high school was when I was in Damn Yankees. And even that, I played the devil. I wasn't even on the team. But shout out to my Damn Yankees cast, Abington High School, 97.
Yeah, there you go.
I was obsessed with sports broadcasting. And broadcasting in general. Like I wrote a paper in Abington Jr. about my dream of being on TV as a news anchor, and I won this competition, and I got to like shadow Tim Lake at NBC in Philly for the day, and then that's when I realized there's no way I'm going to be a newscaster. No way, can't do it. Like it's just so straight. And like I can't stop making jokes, and I was like, okay, maybe that's not my avenue, but I definitely want to be on TV, but this is a little straight for me. I would in more of an effort to be a basketball player, I went to Hall of Fame basketball camp in Montclair, New Jersey, and they didn't know what to do with me. Like I'm enrolled in this basketball camp, but I mean, I can't play with any of these guys, right? Mm-hmm. At the same time, there was a broadcasting camp at that camp that was run by Bill Raftery.
Ah,
a kiss, yeah. And he was there, and the guy, and I don't know what happened, but I have a feeling one of my coaches went up to Bill Raftery. He was like, "Hey, can you talk to this Shapiro kid for me and see if he could just move over to your camp from our camp because he's really slowing the game down." And so Bill Raftery pulls me aside in the dorm at Montclair State University, and he's like, "Hey, I think you're an on camera guy." And I just started rapping to him about Temple basketball and about the Big Five and the Atlantic 10. And, and I met him and I'm like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. Even when my brother was playing basketball at Abington, I would run the camera up in the booth and do play-by-play. Even though I'm sure the coach was not. Is the sound on when the coaches run game tape? I don't think so. But if he were to put the sound on, he would have gotten some great play-by-play by a 10-year-old Adam Shapiro.
So I would imagine, and I think you alluded to this previously, productions in high school, that sort of thing.
Yep.
University of Maryland, you did a lot of theater there. But then you take that big step, and I think you went to New York before L.A. What's that like? That you hear, the stereotype is the starving artist. Okay, were you the starving artist?
Yeah, I mean, I've never. Yeah, I did theater in high school, and I did some theater at University of Maryland, but I never believed I was going to be a professional actor. I just thought, like, this is where I should be right now, and maybe this theater degree could, like, get me to Hollywood, and maybe I could work behind the scenes or whatever. So the weird part about it is, like, I never really felt like a starving artist because I never really felt like an artist. I just kind of felt like, this is me, this is what I do, whether that's teaching Hebrew school in the Valley or working as a production assistant.
Which you did, right? You did that for a minute.
Yeah, 3 years, man. Those kids, I just ran into one of those kids the other day. He's like 36 years old. I couldn't believe it. He's like, yeah, my son's about to have a bar mitzvah. Yeah. And I was like, good Lord. So whatever I did, I was Andy Dick's assistant, which FYI, worst job ever in the history of Hollywood. But I worked at Survivor, and I worked at all these TV shows, and I was a manager's assistant. I worked at an agency. And so I never really felt like I was only an artist. And I always had a job. I always was able to pick up some McDonald's and not really starve. So I never really felt like that starving artist. And then when I actually met a woman from Philadelphia named Connie Tavel, is a really big manager producer in Hollywood. And through my family connections, she was like one person that I could meet with when I moved to LA. And she gave me this really great advice. And she was like, listen, I think that you have what it takes to be an actor if that's what you want to do. But just so you know, 99% of the people come out here and they don't get any auditions and they don't find success right away and they don't understand how the business works and they move back to where they came from. So she was like, my advice to you would be take the next year, your first year in LA, and work jobs and live in LA and read the trades every morning and get to learn how this industry works so that when you become an actor within the industry, you're not taking everything so personally. You understand why people get cast, why people don't get cast. And it was the best advice I could have ever been given because when I finally did get that audition, my first audition, which I ended up booking it was a T-Mobile campaign, and in which I say, yo, it's Adam Shapiro. I'm on a road trip. Like, I'm using my name in this commercial because I didn't even know any better to not say your name when they ask you to improv.
Right.
I was so new to the world, but I just, yo, it's Adam Shapiro. Yeah, I'm traveling the country. I'm on my phone. And she gave me this really great advice, and she was my manager for many years. And that's a great Philly connection there. But I've always considered myself sort of not one thing, or maybe I don't even know what I am. And so it's helped me sort of be comfortable in any arena. So whether that's like, all right, now you got to jump and do a musical, or now you're doing a hardcore drama on Showtime that's like winning Golden Globes. It's like, I don't consider all of those things that different. I mean, even the pretzel company, it's a lot like when I started a theater company. It's a lot like my acting career. You're kind of a salesman, and then you sell it, and then it's your job to make sure A, that performance is great, or B, that pretzel is great. You know, I mean, you just got to get it done.
Check out our friends over at Philadelphia Sports Nation, a local Philadelphia sports site covering your favorite teams across blogs and social media. PHLSportsNation.com. Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience.
The great thing I think about sports is that it's a uniter. No matter your religion, color of your skin, whatever, you're wearing the green, so I'm wearing the green, and we're brothers, even though we might be different in many, many ways.
Although you and I might be. There's a good chance that we are related.
For sure, yeah. But staying in Hollywood now, what's the Philly vibe? I would imagine that there are a lot of Philly, and I'm talking about like Hollywood types, actors, producers, that sort of thing, who you go to the Sixers bar, the Eagles, the Philly sports bar, and you're all there. Is that right?
It's amazing. I mean, I knew nobody in LA when I moved out here, and the first thing I did was go to a sports bar to watch a Sixers game. You know, at like 4:00 on a Wednesday, because that's what time the Sixers play out here.
Right.
And that's where I met Mike Jackson, who you had as a podcast guest. I got invited by a bunch of kids who grew up in Germantown to watch the first Eagles game. I had moved out to LA in August of 2001, and the first Eagles game coming up, I got invited by Brian Klugman and Bradley Cooper and Lee Sternthal and all these guys that all kind of knew each other from Philly and that all watched these Eagles games together. And I used to go to this sports bar and watch every game with a huge Eagles contingent, like 40, 50 guys. More guys than I had ever watched Eagles games with when I was in Philly, which you just sort of, it's on TV, so I just watched with my dad and my brother, you know? But I had this amazing, and that was my in. I mean, one of those guys who I watched the Eagles games with, his wife, Amy Israel, is the president of Showtime, and I've done like 3 Showtime shows now. Not just because of my relationship with Amy, but that doesn't hurt, you know what I mean?
Right.
Eventually, if a role is between 2 or 3 actors, and those tapes get sent up the line, the president of Showtime is going to be like, all right, it's this guy. And, you know,
it's the Philly guy.
I'm really grateful the president of Showtime loves the Eagles, you know? But, you know, and Bradley Cooper, who was like one of the first guys to like bring my pretzels to his set for Maestro, and Brian Klugman, who, you know, now runs all the marketing at T-Mobile, which was literally like how my start happened. But all these like Philly connections, and when I started the pretzel company, that's when I realized like, oh, this is even bigger than my little pocket of Philadelphia and LA. Like, it is massive. There are so many Philly people here, and as you know, and I think thank God for all the technology that like brings us all the games, because now it's like you don't have to, just because you're living in a different town doesn't mean you have to like give up your like, you know, your green card, you know?
Yeah.
So we, you know, the amount of Philly people that I have come across. I drive down the street now and everyone's like, "Yo, Shappy, go Birds!" And it's such a funny.
You gotta say it to the Philly. You gotta say, "Yo,
Shappy, go Birds!" Yeah, I mean it's amazing. It's been really, for the Super Bowl. I was like, I put out an Instagram and said, "Yo, the Eagles are in the Super Bowl." So I am making a promise to my Philly people in LA. If you want soft pretzels for the Super Bowl, I will personally deliver them to your house.
Nice.
Which was like an awesome and also unbelievably stupid thing to do.
Why?
Just publicly say, I'm coming to anybody's house to drop off pretzel. With I didn't give any I didn't have any like boundary. What do you call like a radius?
Yeah.
For delivery. So it's like,
right. It could have been coming from anywhere.
I'm in Orange County.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So I ended up having to basically get like 8 drivers to deliver 400 different soft pretzel packages around the Southern California area to Eagles fans. And every time I walked into a house, it was like a party. And I'm like, guys, I can't stay. I have to leave and get to the next house.
Yeah.
I got a lot of Eagles fans. And you don't want Eagles fans upset at you either.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the last thing you want.
Listen, I'm impressed you made good on that, but I do want to zero in on this.
By halftime, there were a few late ones.
I do want to zero in on the Sixers, and I'm going to take a wild guess.
Let's do that.
Because you said 2001, August of 2001. That was 2 months removed from an unbelievable run. Allen Iverson and that team. I would imagine it's got to be wheelhouse for you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember driving out. The run happened on my drive out to Los Angeles, actually. So I remember watching like Game 5. Every game I basically watched at a sports bar in a different town, traveling across the country.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. And then I ended up in the one town you don't want to be in at the end of that series. Yeah, right. Like I ended up like at the Lakers parade, you know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, that Iverson team, and Aaron McKee was on that team, and I'm a huge Temple fan. Mutombo, and man, that was just
Tyrone Hill, George Lynch, Eric Snow.
Yeah. I grew up a huge Temple fan, but and Sixers fan, and Dr. J and I share a birthday. So one time I was at a Sixers game, and like the cheerleaders came up to our seat and like delivered like a birthday package to me, and there was a Dr. J signed picture that said "Happy Birthday, Adam," and that's like up in my kitchen to this day in LA.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the Sixers in my squad.
Iverson, just to try to put into words what it must have meant for you to watch him. I mean, I had a front row seat, and I was the soundtrack for all that stuff. But for those who, are 20-somethings and never really saw him play in person, tell me as a fan what it was like to see him perform.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's... Oh, God, that's such a great question. I can't believe I'm getting a question about Allen Iverson. This is the greatest day ever. I think, Iverson, so much more. If there's like 2 parts when you talk about Iverson. It's like it's the basketball part, and then there's the man. And I think like what was so inspiring about Iverson was this. He was just. It was like the molding of a city and a player that only happens sort of once in a long time. Where a city and a player match up the way that Allen Iverson and Philly matched up. He's an underdog. He's undersized. He's constantly doubted, and constantly overperforming, even for fans. I mean, like, I was the biggest Iverson fan you could have. There's 7 posters of Iverson in my room growing up, and you're still shocked by what he's doing. And yeah, I think for young basketball fans, I think maybe John Morant has like that same sort of like, did I just see what I think I saw? Like, how did he do that? And it happens a lot of times with Iverson. Things would happen so quickly, it wouldn't be until the slow motion replay where you're like, oh my, like the jab step before the crossover, like those kinds of like little things that Iverson would bring to the game that sort of change the game in the same way that Curry is changing the game now with like, you know, shot percentages and how far away you can shoot and what makes sense and how many 3-pointers you can take. Like Iverson changed the game as far as like the way that you approach the game and the way that you dribble the ball and the way that you cross over. Like everything about him sort of like took the NBA to the next level. But I think as an artist and as somebody who's constantly in the public eye, I was always, you know, in hindsight, I can see it now, like really inspired by Iverson's commitment to being himself. And like, you know, that got Iverson into trouble sometimes. And that got, you know, like things happened with the NBA, with the dress code, with the tattoos, with Iverson wanting to rap. And like, there was like a constant sort of like tug and, I don't know what you would call it, but just like a battle with the NBA over sort of like image and players fitting a certain image. And I think like Dr. J broke down some of those barriers when like the ABA and the NBA came together, and here comes Dr. J with his big fro and his style and grace on the floor. And then all of a sudden like Iverson like taking it to another level. And I think like, you know, I love like hearing young players like give it up to Iverson. Like I love when Iverson shows up at a Sixers game and he gets like so much love from these young guys that probably weren't even like born when he was playing, but they understand what the impact Iverson had on the game and on the culture. And I, you know, for me, it was just always really inspiring. And like a lot of times I'll think about Allen Iverson when I'm like feeling insecure in Hollywood and feeling like maybe I don't quite fit the mold here. Like I'm on the red carpet at the Oscars with my pretzels and I wasn't in any of these movies, you know, and you know, like I have a video I always post on Instagram where I just change practice to pretzels, and you know, it's Iverson just saying, "We're talking about pretzels, not a game, not a game. We're talking about pretzels, pretzels."
You know what?
Yeah,
you know what else?
He's an inspiring guy for me, man. I love it. I love AI.
And in some ways, I think, and they're totally different players, Joel Embiid has some of that magnetism, some of that charisma when it comes to the fans. 100%. He plays to the fans. They love it. They show the love back to him. Totally different guy, though, just in terms of being a big, dominant big man as opposed to Iverson, the 6 foot, 165-pound dish rag who got clobbered every time he went into the lane.
Yeah. Well, I would argue that Embiid gets clobbered every time too. Just he doesn't go flying into the third row like Iverson used to. But
he ends up on the floor a lot.
Yeah, he definitely ends up on the floor a lot. I love Embiid. Yeah, that's another like, you know, Embiid's like the modern Iverson in that. Like Iverson didn't have social media, and Embiid is like the king of social media. The way that he trolls, the way that he. I mean, he's such a fun player to follow on and off the court. I mean, he's hilarious. I don't think there's ever been like a funnier Philadelphia athlete. Do you know any other ones that have been like this genuinely hilarious?
I think Barkley is pretty funny.
Barkley's funny.
Yeah,
you're
I think
absolutely right.
Yeah.
Barkley's
I'm trying to
really funny.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm sure there are some obvious ones. John Kruk, who does our color analysis now, really funny. I mean, really fun. Like,
these are really good. I'm asking the right guy about this.
Right.
Like, funniest Philly athletes is a funny conversation. Oh, that's great. You know what? My favorite Iverson memory, actually, when the NBA had the lockdown, which was 96, was it? 90.
Well, there was one in 98, 99, and it turned out to be 98, 99 turned out to be a 50-game season, which was amazing. It was like a college season. And that's the first time they made the playoffs in 8 years. That was my favorite ever game. That first game at what is now Wells Fargo Center, they tied Orlando 1 apiece at their place, and they took them on. I think they were a 6 seed. Orlando was a 3 seed, and they ended up beating them. But I just remember that game. I don't think anybody sat down the entire time.
That is so awesome. I remember during the lockout, it was a lockout, right?
It was a lockout. That's right.
Yeah, a lot of the players all met at Pearson Hall at Temple University and would run just scrimmages all day. Mm-hmm. And there was a day that was so insane, the amount of so all these players. This was like not McGonigal Hall, but Pearson was it's like a little like physical. It was a PE gym at Temple.
Yeah, sure.
And it was very close to my dad's office. And now my dad's a professor, my mom's a teacher. They're not pulling me out of school for any reason.
Yeah, right.
School is like paramount in my family. And I get a phone call from the principal's office while I'm at school saying my dad has to come and take me out of school. And I'm like, what's happening? You know what I mean? This is my senior year of high school. I'm like getting pulled out of school. I get on the phone with my dad. He's like, you need to get in the car and you need to drive down to Temple right now. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
I drive down to Temple. I meet at his office. He's like, I'm about to show you the greatest basketball pickup game of your life.
Wow.
And we walk into Pearson Hall, and it's Iverson, McKee, Rasheed Wallace, Katino Mobley.
Philly guys. Guys.
It was like all the Philly guys and then a lot of Sixers, because the lockdown had sort of happened. It was such a long lockdown that guys had sort of gone home.
Yeah.
And it was like a Big Five alumni Simon Gratz reunion.
Right.
Broad Street, North, South, Broad, molding. I mean, it was one of the coolest things ever. And they were just running lightning fast. I'm watching. It was an unbelievable sight to see, and I'm so glad my dad was like, I don't care if he's in school, he needs to watch this game. And I watched the game all day.
And go ahead.
Yeah, they just kept running. I mean, it was unbelievable.
And
Lamar Odom was there.
You a Temple killer, by the way, but I won't go there.
He killed Temple, but that bank shot in the
in the
A10
tournament
final.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm seeing you with the Eagles sweatshirt. You told the story of distributing the pretzels, for Eagles fans and all that. So you love the birds, Phils, the whole thing.
The whole thing, man. I love it. I will say, when I go to Phillies Dodgers games, I wear a Dodgers hat. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Wait, say that again. You go to a Phillies Dodgers game and you wear a Dodgers hat?
Yeah, I
wait.
I'm
gonna hit the stop button here and stop recording. What's up with that?
So I don't love conflict, and I certainly don't like fighting sections of stadiums. Right?
Does it get that bad? I mean, we've heard. You read about those Giants fans who were accosted.
It's not great. I actually have a really great picture of me and 4 of my buddies. We're decked out in all Philly stuff, and we're at the Phillies Dodgers NLCS from like 10 years ago. And somebody took a picture of us from way up in our section, and it's just a sea of blue, and there's the 4 of us in red, and then there's 2 security guard police officers on both sides of us that they had basically given us detail at the game. Now I don't even play around. I just wear a Dodgers hat, and no one knows I'm a Phillies fan, and no one messes with me, and then I just get to enjoy whooping their ass. I mean, it's the best.
Yeah, right.
I just don't mess around with it. No way. Not at a Dodgers game.
What's your earliest Sixer memory?
Earliest Sixer memory, probably
first time you went to a game.
Yeah, the Spectrum.
Oh, really? You go back to the Spectrum. Good for you.
Yeah, it was probably the Spectrum. My father was a Temple professor, and he was very close with the commissioner of recreation in Philly, Dolores Andy at the time, and she would always have she had a little box at Vet Stadium, and she had some seats at the Spectrum, And so we would often get to use those. In fact, the box, the commissioner's box, the Philadelphia commissioner's box at Vet Stadium was right next to the broadcast booth. And it was like, now you go into these super boxes and there's like, buffets and there's flat screen TVs and couches. Right. This was just I'm pretty sure it was concrete and AstroTurf was what this box was made out of, with folding chairs. But we kind of like would go for every game there, and I would like put my ear to the glass and watch the broadcasters next door, and it was the coolest experience. I think my first Sixers memory might have been watching Dr. J at the Spectrum.
Mid to late 80s, maybe. I mean, you don't remember the 83. Do you remember the 83 title team? I don't think you remember.
No, I was too little.
Yeah.
I was like 3 years old.
Yeah, right. You come back to Philly much? Where do you hang? What do you do?
You know what? I'm not. I was just there recently for the Philadelphia Film Festival, which is amazing, by the way. If you've never been down there, the theater's great. Like that whole the Philadelphia Film Commission, they're really active at Sundance Film Festival. There's, I shot a film in Philly a bunch of years ago called Cafe with Jamie Kennedy, another Philly guy.
Yeah, right.
And Jennifer Love Hewitt, who's not Philly but gets the pretzels all the time.
Okay.
And I mean, so she passes, she gets a Philly card. I get a Philly as much as I can. My parents moved to Miami. My brother moved to DC. So it's rare when I'm visiting family that I'm going through Philly. But I am this year I'm going to bring my kids. My daughter is now 2 years old. My son's 5, and I think this is the summer we're going to go to Philly now that everyone's traveling again. So we're gonna have to meet up with you, and we got to get these kids a cheesesteak finally.
Yeah, for sure. Last question, and we were talking earlier about the producer Mike Jackson, who's from the Philly area as well and does so well out there. Well, now he's in Austin, Texas. But I asked Mike. I said, do you ever just have a moment where you just sit back and you think about what you've accomplished, and you just say to yourself, I'm like one of the luckiest people on the face of the earth to get to do what I do and to achieve what I've achieved, and good family, and I'm successful in a business that a lot of people would give their eye teeth to get into. Do you ever have those moments?
All the time. I mean, I have those moments just as much as I have those moments of like, what am I doing here? Everyone's going to find out that I'm a fraud, I have no idea what I'm doing. But every time I step onto a set, every time I drive onto a lot, I mean, I've never lost the excitement of driving onto a studio lot and driving past the stages and seeing the actors walking from their trailer to the stages, and then, oh, there's my trailer, and there's my name on the trailer, and there's my name on the chair. Like, all those little things for me are just, you can't even really say it's a dream come true, because I would never have dreamed that I'd be doing this in this way. Like I was in Budapest for the past 9 months shooting a John Wick prequel TV series. Like, what am I doing? Like, and I'm like learning martial arts one day, and then the next day I'm doing gun training, and then the next day, and then I'm flying home for 4 days to shoot 4 episodes of Never Have I Ever, and then getting back on the plane to go back to Budapest. I mean, it really is just, it blows my mind all the time. And every time I'm on a set, every time I'm on a premiere, every time I'm on a red carpet or something like that, I'm constantly thinking of growing up in Philly, and thinking about these things and wanting these things and having no idea how to achieve them. I'm constantly in a state of like, wow. And then at the same time, I'm constantly in the state of like, all right, what's the next thing?
Yeah, right.
What's next? Because I'm never getting hired again. Like every time I wrap a TV show, I'm like, well, it's been a good run, Katie.
Yeah.
Time to move out and start our drama school in like a tiny town somewhere.
That's funny.
It's amazing.
I'll say this. I just think it's the nature of being a performer that you always have a little bit of imposter syndrome kind of sneaking in there, right?
It always. I mean, I'm just, it's funny now that I'm Well, I just turned 43, right, in February. So, like, especially when I'm on Never Have I Ever, which is the show I do for Netflix, it's like I'm kind of the oldest actor on the set, right? Which I'm not used to that being the case. I just still consider myself like I'm like the baby on the set. Like, everybody here has way more experience than me. And now I'm talking to these kids that are my students on the show, and I catch myself sort of making references to like, oh yeah, when I worked with, Fincher, when I worked with, when I was doing Steve Jobs, or I was working with the Wachowskis or the John Wick people. And I realized like, oh my God, like these experiences are starting to build up.
Right, there you go.
I'm actually to a place now where I can be a little bit more confident on set doing what I do, because like there's not a lot of things now that are in Hollywood that will be a first time experience for me at this point. But man, when it is first time and you get that rush of excitement and that nervousness, I mean, I'll never forget my first night on Broadway. I had 8 days to learn the entire musical. From the moment I got cast in Los Angeles, I had 8 days to move with my wife, who I co-starred in the musical with, and our 6-month-old to New York City. And the clock started the moment we landed in New York. And it was 8 days later, we were having our Broadway debut in front of a completely sold out house, that didn't buy the tickets because we were in it. They bought those tickets months and months and months ago. So, that pressure, it's as a huge sports fan, it's like the only thing I could imagine it must feel like to walk into an arena and it's your first time in the playoffs, or it's your first time in the finals. And I'm as you can tell, like I'm constantly taking things from the sports arena and using them in my own profession, I mean, I think that's the great thing about sports, is that it's sort of the great analogy for so much of like the life and the challenges that we all face, and I think that's why it's so inspiring to watch guys and girls, do what they do. I say girls right now because I'm just got done watching the college women's basketball for the past few months, and good Lord.
Yeah, it was great. It was
unbelievable.
Great. Yeah. Adam Shapiro, actor.
You're the man.
Oh, please. Actor, father, husband, and soft pretzel purveyor. Not to mention huge Sixers and Philly sports fans. Thank you, my friend, for being with us.
I'm sending you some pretzels, Mark. You're the man.
Yeah, but they might be stale. I want them hot out of the oven. I'm coming to you to eat them. Like, I'm going to come to the bakery, and I just want to eat them right there.
Done and done.
That's what I'm talking about.
You have an invitation any day.
My man. Thank you, my friend.